The TFL Cheap Jeep series is brought to you by Onyx Off-Road and Granger Motors.
Hey guys, today we have a very special off-road review video because we've got part 3 of our Cheap Defender series.
Hold on there, it's actually the Cheap Jeep series because there's no such thing as a Cheap Defender, although you might say there's no such thing as a cheap new Jeep either, but today we're going to find out which is better off-road, the base Defender or the base Jeep.
By going up Cliffhanger 1.0. Today we're going to do apples to apples because we've got a base Defender with upgraded tires and we've got a base Jeep Wrangler Sport with upgraded tires, and the only difference between them is, well, $18,000.
So we're going to air both of these vehicles down to about 21.7 psi, which is the recommended pressure for today. And then we're going to hit the trail and we'll have equal tire pressures in both.
Hold on, Tommy, I disagree. 21.8.
All right, 21.8.
Perfect pressure for doing Cliffhanger 1.0.
That's right, Monday, October 14th, the air down gods to 21.8.
Yeah.
Nice. It's coming up 1.5, 6.
Oh, we screwed it up, dude.
7. No, this is scientific testing. 8.
Hey, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, nice. We're going to go up in the Defender first because, well, it's the more mature, the more expensive of the two.
That's right. So, it's worth noting, we bought this vehicle for $53,000, but it was a year old and with 10,000 miles. The sticker on this Defender 90 was actually closer to 65 grand.
Sorry, got a little bit of a cough there.
I know, it's a lot of money, 65 grand. So it's going on, well, nearly double what we paid for that brand new cheap Jeep.
But because of Land Rover's notorious depreciation, with 10,000 miles and 1 year old, we got it for $10,000 off.
Yeah, more than that. So let's talk about this Defender. This is the base model D90 with the little 2-liter 4-cylinder, about 296 horsepower under the hood. And let's talk about some of the 4-wheel drive gear. So we're going to start by putting it in 4-low. In a Defender, it's a full-time 4-wheel drive system with the center transfer case, center differential, that's the word I'm going for. And we're going to go ahead and lock it in low range. Lock it in low range.
Yeah.
There it goes.
There it goes. I gave you a little bit of a help there.
Okay, so we've got it in low range,
Yep.
and then go ahead and stick it in drive. Let's go ahead and figure out what kind of off-road mode we want to put it in. So if I push this little button here, it's going to allow me to engage a couple different off-road modes. I say we go for
I think you were there.
rock crawl.
Okay.
You good with rock crawl?
Yeah, let's do rock crawl.
So that's going to lock up that center differential. Now, there are a couple of different off-road packs you can get in the Defender, including one for locking rear diff. We don't have that. So this is a nice apples-to-apples test. Both the Land Rover and the Jeep have open diffs.
On the left side is Truth, and on the right side is Dare, and we're going to go up.
The Dare side.
Of course we are. We're going to go up there.
So one of the big differences between the Land Rover and the Jeep is this Land Rover has independent suspension on all 4 corners, which is a much more refined experience on-road, but let's see if that causes us to struggle off-road. So first thing you're going to notice is a little bit of traction loss. This is a seriously steep incline. We're looking at about 16 degrees right now, but it's going to get steeper as we go higher. That's close to 20 degrees now, 6-degree side slope, and we've got these elephant holes coming up. We're going to start lifting tires, and let's see if the 4-wheel drive system can compensate with that with these open differentials.
Yeah, so it's going to have to figure it out because we're going to lose, we're already losing traction.
There it is.
So now it's figuring it out, setting power to where there's traction. So far, so good. I'm really not modulating the accelerator very much. I'm just letting the vehicle figure it out because that's what Land Rover does so well.
There it goes. Wahoo!
Oh my. Not too much drama from my point of view, Tommy.
Yeah, it's just kicking butt. So
Yeah.
that was a great example of the Land Rover 4-wheel drive system doing its thing. So we picked up tires in the air, then the brakes actuated, forcing wheel speed to the tires on the ground. It was really good. Not too much drama there. We were picking up tires in the air, forcing brakes on opposite ends of the vehicle to engage, force wheel speed to the tires that had grip, and we climbed right up. Not a lot of throttle. The low range works great in this car. No ground clearance issues. It was a good result.
Yeah, you know, people always think you have to have the elephant gun to take on the elephant steps. You know what I mean by that is front lock or rear lock or disconnectable sway bar. But you know, good tires, really is what it's all about, and that's exactly what we've done with both of these vehicles, right? This one has KO3s, and that one, because it's our cheap Jeep series, has some used Falcons that we bought cheaply that somebody took off of JT.
Yeah, Rubicon Gladiator, and we just bolted them on for $700. So that's the first part done. Let's see how the Jeep compares to the Land Rover up that hill.
Tell me, what are you doing with this?
Well, our friends at Jeep sent us a whole box of ducks. Look at all the ducks I have now. Look at all the ducks we got.
And it's got a little Jeep symbol on it.
I know. So same hill. Gonna try to take the same line, and let's see what we can do. So low range, there's no real special modes. There is like an off-road kind of crawl assistant.
Yeah.
It's called Select Speed.
Yeah.
So I can try that. We haven't tried it yet in this video. So I'm going to set it at 1.2 miles per hour. And you can already hear the traction control system trying to distribute torque where it needs to go. Once again, this vehicle, just like the Land Rover, has open diffs, but this is the part-time four-wheel drive system. So you manually have to go from 2 high to 4 high to 4 low. There's no full-time four-wheel drive.
You know, since we've upgraded the tires, Tommy, it has made a world of difference.
Yeah, it is completely transformed what this Jeep can do. So there we go, we're already lifting wheels into the air. And now we're gonna take a pretty challenging line here. This is all the Jeep trying to figure it out all by itself.
Whoa, that was a little sketchy. Oh, that's a little sketchy. Whoa.
So what we noticed there is the same kind of torque intervention that we got with the Land Rover. The difference is we really picked up that tire high because this wheelbase is so short. So even though we have solid axles, which does benefit us in a lot of situations, when you're going up a steep hill and you start three-wheeling or two-wheeling, having that little bit of additional wheelbase.
All right, I know a solution to this that's not expensive, that could be part of the next episode. Disconnectable sway bars, manually done.
So in the previous video, I unbolted them.
Yeah.
And I was gonna do it in this video, but I forgot my wrenches, which is very embarrassing.
Tell me, when we bought this Land Rover, we specifically got the one without the air suspension. And there are good and bad things about that. The good thing is you get reliability. The bad thing is you don't get great ground clearance.
That is one of the cool things about the four-corner setup is you push a button, you can jack it up. There's even like an extract mode, which will give you another inch or so if you're really, really stuck. It's a great feature. And I also think you get better articulation because it's a cross-linked air suspension that can mimic how a solid axle works side to side in the vehicle. So I think if I was to do this again, even though I know it's a concern for reliability, I'd probably go with the air suspension setup in the Land Rover. So we got a nice little group of clearance testers, I like to call them, which are these nice rocky outcroppings, and let's see if we have the clearance. One of the things that the Land Rover is lacking a little bit in my opinion, is underbody protection. All right, so we found ourselves in another little obstacle here, once again with the holes, crazy holes on this trail. There you go. So this is where a solid axle might perform better in terms of keeping contact with the ground. But in the Land Rover, it's not as important as it would have been like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, right? Before traction control systems, because it's so effective in this Land Rover at slowing down the spinning wheels, you can pretty much go through anything. So one of the things I think Land Rover could improve, and I think now you can get them in the Octa, which is the new crazy $150,000 extreme Land Rover. I would like to see them go a little bit more with their underbody protection.
Yeah, but that makes no sense. That thing will never see dirt. It's rolling on like 28s or something, right? Something that's completely off-road worthy.
It's not as bad as you think, actually.
I think it is as bad as I think.
It's rolling on 22-inch wheels, which is the problem. And then kind of off-roady tires. But it has like the rear locker, and it's got crazy clearance, and I think it's got maybe even more clearance than the standard Defender, which is cool. But, you know, I'd like to see them offer, for example, rock rails across the line.
Well, I'd like to see them off for skid plates.
Well, there's some skid protection. Like we have an underbody shield here, right? We've got maybe some fuel tank protection, but it's pretty minimal compared to what you can do on certain Jeep and Toyota products.
Yeah, I mean, what I feel about this vehicle, and I'm going to use a James Bond analogy, right? It's like James Bond has not quite decided whether he's going to go to a black tie event, even though we are at a black tie event, right? And what I mean by that is we are seriously off-roading, and yet this has a lot of compromises for on-road. And that's the part that scares me a little bit because, you know, you don't want to puncture anything underneath. You don't want to, like happened to us, blow a tire. Luckily, we've got better tires. And of course, you've got the fact that it's a much more expensive vehicle, so you're worried about it more than you are a Wrangler.
Well, the thing that would prevent me from taking this places the Jeep would go is kind of the size of it. This is a much wider vehicle than the Jeep.
It's the smallest of all the Land Rovers, Defenders, right? This is the 90. They
Yeah,
don't get
and
much
this is
smaller.
the one. Yeah, the length is great, but it's the width that really is the shocking difference when you get from the Land Rover to the Jeep. And there are certain technical obstacles on some of these narrow Colorado trails where the Jeep just has more options, right, on where you can go and how you want to maneuver to get there, which I definitely appreciate in that little two-door Wrangler. But you cannot, and I'm going to say this again, you cannot underestimate the Land Rover four-wheel drive system. In my opinion, it is simply the best in the world. Okay, let me clarify. A triple locked vehicle is the best in the world. But from an everyday usability standpoint and a breadth of what it can do, the Land Rover system is truly shocking. What this vehicle can do with open diffs and just a center locker will blow your mind. It is that sophisticated and that well programmed.
Or maybe more importantly, from my point of view, Tommy, I am perfectly comfortable going up this very rocky trail. I feel like this thing is not going to put a foot wrong. Having aired it down, it actually is a comfortable ride. You don't get a lot of that head bob. And, you know, the only thing that gives me pause is that this is, you know, a lot more expensive. So if you do crunch some metal, it's just going to hurt more.
Yeah, that's a really good point you bring up. And I think also maintenance and repair costs, right? And the other thing, which is just the fact of the matter, is there are a lot fewer aftermarket companies and components that you can really mess with this Defender. There are a bunch now, compared to when this vehicle came out a few years ago. But if you contrast that to the Wrangler world, it is a lot more limited, and I also find it to be quite a bit more expensive. Okay, so this is an interesting problem. I don't think we're going to clear this rock on the right here, Dad.
I think I'm going to go around it.
Are you going to be able to fit around it?
Yeah.
Without tearing the heck out of that beautiful white wheel?
I just did, didn't I?
Oh, yeah, you did. Yeah. Oh, sort of.
Then I heard a little squeal of tire on rock.
Oh, we did it again.
What?
Really testing the sidewall capability of that KO2 there. Look, I think though, this vehicle offers a lot of things that the Jeep doesn't have, like long distance off-road comfort. You know, you can talk about daily drivability. Obviously the Land Rover is going to be better. But even if you're looking to explore more mild trails, 4 or 5 on Onyx Off-Road, which is, by the way, our go-to trail off-road navigation software. Check them out in the link below. If you're looking just to explore some really cool backcountry areas that doesn't require crazy ground clearance, which a lot of stuff doesn't, this is such a more comfortable vehicle. And if you have a spouse like we both do, our wives would be a lot happier cruising around in this than in that Land Rover for a full, or the Jeep for a full day.
You're not going to go do like Metal Masher and Moab in this, right?
Not with that attitude.
No, not with any attitude.
Not with that budget. Yeah.
But for what it is, okay, for what it is, which is, you know, mainly on-road, family getter, it's a very comfortable and very capable vehicle. I can't think of a much better vehicle that has kind of that all-around quality. I mean, the Wrangler, yeah, it's very good off-road, but it's very compromised on-road in some ways.
All right, onward. So what's interesting about this is when you look at the vehicles in pictures, they really do look pretty similar sized.
But they're both 2 doors.
Yeah, they're both 2 doors, and they kind of have similar proportions, right? The rear wheel is right at the back edge of the doors. When you see them in person and when you drive them especially, that's when you really notice what a difference the sizes of these two are.
Yeah, this is definitely more maneuverable, more just agile, in a lot of ways probably more athletic too.
It's also quite a bit more cramped, maybe is the word we'd like. I mean, we're very close together here.
It's not horrible.
No, it's not, but like, you really notice it in the trunk. This has a teeny, teeny, tiny trunk, right? Where the Land Rover has a much more usable space back there for things, where if you're hauling more than a toaster oven in the Jeep, you're gonna need a friend.
But you could, get both of them bigger 4-doors,
Yes,
right?
that's right, yeah. But it's kind of cool we have both 2-doors here.
Yeah, it is kind of cool, because these are definitely the least popular of the model range. Because, did you know when the 4-door, the Unlimited, was introduced, like 50% of them went immediately? I think it was more than that. I think it was more than 50% went 4-door.
Yeah, it's like 70-30, I think, is the split now.
Yeah, and I want to say with the Land Rover, I think it's less than like 5%.
Well, the
2-door.
The funny thing about the Land Rover is that is manufactured not in the U.S., where this is manufactured in Toledo.
Yep.
And 2-door SUVs fall under the chicken tax. So Land Rover, I think, is paying a 25% tariff on every single 2-door Defender 90 they import. And I just love that they, even with all that, they continue to do it. That's pretty cool. All right, so here we're going to see if there's a difference with the solid axles on these nice little pits. So front tire is going to start to dive into the hole. Traction control is going to engage. The vehicle is nice and twisted up. Yeah, so what we're seeing here is there's a little bit more articulation with the Jeep, but the actual 4-wheel drive system is much faster to respond in the Land Rover to wheels in the air, which is interesting. But look at that turning radius. Look how tight that is.
Yeah, I mean,
that's crazy tight.
I think this is a little bit more dim-witted when it comes to instantaneous response. I think you can tell that Land Rover has got that one has got the Land Rover dialed in more than Jeep has got this dialed in. And I think that's also because you can easily get front and rear lockers on a Jeep Wrangler, whereas you can only get a rear locker on a Defender.
Sure.
And even those are hard to get.
Yeah, and look, if you are, and I think Jeep assumes if you're regularly tackling terrain like this or harder, that you're just going to buy the Rubicon. But we're making the argument in the series you don't need to. Just spend $35,000 like we did on this one. Get the Sport, change tires, maybe add some cheap used rock rails, and then go hit the trail.
Yeah, but there's an irony to that, Tommy, and that is that for what you spend on the Rubicon, you get a lot more than if you tried to build it up yourself. So the Dana 44s, the lockers, the disconnectable sway bars, you could do all that, right? But it would be more expensive than just buying it from the factory, and Jeep knows that.
Well, that's what Jeep is hoping you know as well. I think, though, you don't need lockers, right? You don't need the electronically disconnectable sway bar because you can just do it yourself, right? That's my point in this series is just forego it. This thing will take you everywhere you need to go.
But dude, this is America. We don't do anything for ourselves. Why would we want to do it for ourselves when there's a little switch you could just go bloop and it does it for you?
But look, this thing is, I think the word you used earlier was true. When you really start getting into the rocks, it is more athletic, right?
Yeah.
It's more maneuverable. It's got more clearance.
It's got more skid plates.
It's got more underbody protection.
Yeah, that thing has like one giant skid plate. The Defender has one giant skid plate under the engine.
Giant is a
well,
maybe a bit of a stretch, but yeah, this has got beefier, in my opinion, skid plates for like the transfer case and some of those areas. You also feel more willing to beat up on this.
Oh yeah.
And I think part of that is just my bias toward having off-roaded Jeeps more than Defenders, where I know kind of where that limit is to where you can push them. And to be honest, I've never found that limit. I mean, we've taken stock Wranglers and Gladiators down the Rubicon Trail where we spent 8 hours a day on the skid plates nonstop, and they just won't break. So I feel a lot more willing, even though this is a new Jeep and that's a used Defender, to push this vehicle harder because I know where that limit is, and I just don't know where that Land Rover will start to break.
You're saying it's more fragile.
I don't think it is more fragile.
Rough and ready, a little bit less grit.
I don't have that experience to know where the limit is on a Defender.
That's how I would say it. This has more grit. This has more kind of stick-to-itness. Whereas I feel like the Defender is a little bit more city slicker than country boy.
Sure. I mean, the other aspect to keep in mind, which I do want to talk about, is like if you have like a small family that you want to come out here and do this with, and you're looking at a 2-door because you like the 2-doors, this is not a practical vehicle to do that in. And like I know for one, my wife really doesn't like the manual windows, right? Especially for 35 grand, she's like, why am I rolling up a window like a 94 Civic?
It's like Andre and his lack of cruise control. It's not a huge thing when you first think about it, but then when you have to live with it.
And I don't really mind it. I think it's fine. But now that I'm married, I realize I have to also listen to the other half.
It's not the lack of the electric. It's the fact that you paid $35,000 and didn't get it.
That's what gets her.
If it was $25,000, you're like, okay, you can forgive it. But at $35,000, you're like, come on, guys,
exactly.
just stop it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Ooh, Case is having a squeeze by this rock, and we're just gonna
go over it.
No, we're just gonna zoom past it. Look at that. Look how narrow. Look at that. Look at that maneuverability. This vehicle has probably the best turning radius in 2024.
Now, having said that, it's great to have a two-door. They look cooler. They're certainly more, if you're into this athletic lifestyle-ish. But when it gets really steep, you want a long wheelbase vehicle.
Sure.
They tend to not be as
this is also
confidence inspiring on the very steep stuff.
You're also going to notice, like, even though the solid axles were better
a lot more
than the
head
holes,
bob in this
a lot
time.
of head toss.
Yeah, a lot of head toss.
A lot of head toss.
And knee toss and butt toss and all the other tossing there is.
8 hours in a two-door Wrangler feels like 10 compared to 8 hours in a two-door
Yeah, which
Defender.
one would you rather take cross country?
That.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. The Defender is the one to go, yeah.
It's also, even used, $18,000 more expensive, though. So, like, could buy a really nice used Lexus to take across country.
So let's have that conversation, right? Here's my feeling about Land Rovers. Every comment in this video is going to be like, just wait till it breaks, right? Or some variation of that. And my experience with Land Rovers is it really depends on which one you get.
Sure.
Right? So you could luck out and get one that's as or more reliable than this Jeep. Or you could go the other way.
Yeah, there's some of that, and it also just depends on...
It's weird how that happens with Land Rovers.
It depends on the make and model. Like, an LR3 is a very stout vehicle. A Discovery 2 is a very problematic vehicle, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I think that, granted, once again, we had a lot of problems with our first couple Defenders, but first of all, the first one, check engine light, that was a problem. The second one we went through was cutting through the wiring harness.
That was the dealer.
Not Land Rover's fault.
Yeah.
The third one was tire popping. Mostly my fault, a little bit of Land Rover.
I'm going to say we had the off-road package and they put on some Weasley tires.
Sure, that's part of it. But seriously, from a lot of the people I talk to, their Defenders just go and go and go and go and go with not a lot of maintenance problems. So that's cool to see.
I'm hoping we got a good one, Tommy. It's too early to tell. Our screen has taken a dump twice now where it's just stopped working. It's come back to life, but that is not a good sign of things to come.
We got last little loose climb here to the top. It's really cool to feel all the computers work. I mean, that really is the fundamental design difference, right? The Land Rover is relying on a lot of software to make it incredibly capable off-road, where the Jeep is relying more on traditional old school hardware with a sprinkling of software on there. I mean, what makes that Jeep work is also the brake lock differential system. Now, of course, the comments are going to say I would trust the Jeep system more because hardware is longer lasting. But, even though we had some pretty significant issues, there we go, a little bit of work on that rock. We had some pretty significant issues with our first Defender. There's no way around that. From what I've been...
You mean our first three Defenders?
Yeah. What I have been following on the forums, though, people have genuinely been very happy with the long-term longevity of these Defenders. They seem pretty impressed with them.
Well, that's why we bought it. We wanted to come back and we wanted to finish the story that we never ended up telling.
Yeah.
So we wanted to see just how reliable or not reliable it is and just how off-road worthy or not it is. But right now I would say this thing is, as capable on this stuff as a Jeep with, the added ability of being able to go and pick up your kids or your dog or your grandparents and, not make them feel like they're driving a brick into the wind. And I'm not dissing the Wrangler. I love the Wrangler. I'm just saying this is a Leatherman, the Swiss Army knife. The Wrangler next to us, Tommy, that is the machete for going, into the jungle.
Yeah, that's very, very true. All right, here we go. The last climb up this little rocky section. Look at it bounding up this hill. This thing weighs something like over 1,000 pounds less than that Land Rover.
Andre nicknamed it Bill.
Yeah, Bill, because it's thrills without the bill.
Yeah, I kind of like Billy Goat.
Yeah, exactly. Look at it go.
Yeah, especially now that we've upgraded the tires.
It's not going to be great on your bad back, but it does go everywhere.
Yeah, why am I doing this with my bad back, Tommy? I gotta say, it does have a much rougher ride than the Defender.
Yes.
Even off-road.
Yes,
and I think we'll work on that. I want to try to do a Rubicon on a budget, so I want to do a little slight lift, better bumpers, the usual stuff, without breaking the bank.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of takeoff Rubicon parts. That's the current goal.
Yeah, a lot of people take them off, and we buy them cheap. Tommy, cheap Jeep or cheap Defender?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think the Jeep is more capable in terms of where it can go, especially with its nimble size and weight. But if you want a vehicle that'll still tackle probably 80% of what you'd want to and be more comfortable and tow, in some cases up to 4 times as much as the Wrangler, the Defender's a really good option.
Look, with these 2 doors, you're really talking about what's the better toy. And I think the better toy is the Jeep because you can upgrade it endlessly. But if you want the more usable car, then definitely go with the Defender.
Let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. This has been Tommy.
And Roman saying, we'll see you guys next time. Ciao.